So I'm in an iron about buying the Kia e-niro. I test drove the hybrid version this weekend, which I talk about very briefly, but I want to share what I do know about the e-niro that's available in the UK in this video. Okay, so this weekend I went and test drove the hybrid Niro. I think it's worth noting that I think Kia are actually stopping doing the plug-in hybrid, which I think had a 6 kilowatt battery, and just the hybrid non-plug-in version is about 1 point something kilowatts, so a much smaller battery capacity. But I hadn't driven a Niro yet, which is why I wanted to kind of test drive one of those. So I'll put a little note below now as to what time the actual eNiro comment starts. But I just want to briefly talk about the experience I had with the Niro. So I wanted to test drive it for a couple of reasons. One is to kind of get a feeling for the size of it, if it's going to be okay as a family vehicle, and also to try and get an idea what the electric propulsion system was like. I know it's not going to be the same as the eNiro, but just to kind of give some idea, and then also to have a look a little bit at the kind of build quality and the spec. So start off, this was a really low spec Niro, so it didn't feel kind of fantastic in terms of plushness, but it was well put together. There was no creaks and rattles and everything felt kind of solid, but there was no kind of real creature comforts in there. Everything was quite well laid out. It was kind of interesting in terms of the car felt small, but at the same time it felt quite big. So obviously I'm comparing my BMW 4 Series to the Niro, which, and obviously BMW is quite a long car, long bonnet. But yeah, there's plenty of room in the front. It felt quite comfortable. It's got a really kind of large, old-fashioned kind of gear selector for the automatic gearbox. Obviously it's got quite a standard dash, but in terms of storage I think it was quite good, and it drove pretty well. Loads of room in the back actually. So I think you could get 3 adults across the back. It's slightly wider seating than in my 4 Series, but again there's plenty of legroom and headroom in there, which is fantastic. The boot space was a little bit odd. I know that eNiro has a larger capacity boot, which is good, because this had like a weird bulbousy part in it. I'm not sure if it's storage for a spare wheel or something, but I took a couple of measurements to compare it to my 4 Series, so it was slightly wider, but not as deep, and the actual height from base to where the kind of retractable parcel shelf was actually lower than my BMW. But obviously if you retract that up you have got more space, but obviously there's risk that it will kind of fall into the passenger area. So still need to have some thought about what does that mean in terms of storage for like moving suitcases and everything. But overall it was a good car. It was difficult to get a feel for kind of how it was under kind of electric propulsion, because unless you're going very slow the motor was kicking in quite regularly. So when you pull away slowly it would kick in, it would obviously be on electric, and when you were kind of coasting it would move to electric as well. But overall it was a good car. Just I think because it's such a low spec, it kind of felt hard for me to kind of mentally decide to put a deposit down there and then. So I haven't paid the deposit yet. So my kind of thought process was, when I walked away from the car, I did think it was good, but in my head I was like, I don't feel like I want to pay £33,000 for this car. And obviously I don't, because that is like a bottom of the range Niro, so it makes sense I wouldn't want to do it. So I'm going to wait until the demonstrator is available in March, and I've been told that I will get access to that demonstrator for a short go. I don't think I'll probably have to video it or anything. We'll see. It's going to be like half an hour to an hour to try it out, but then I will decide if I'm going to change from my 4 Series to the eNiro. So I appreciate that obviously waiting that long will obviously mean a longer lead time on delivery as well. It might even be a year, so we'll contemplate that at the time, but I didn't want to hand over the cash right there. So, I guess I should just say, people will probably say, well, you could have paid a deposit anyway and then just, pulled out of it. I didn't want to kind of steal someone else's priority spot for for one of these cars if I'm not 100%. So if someone else already knows they definitely want one, it makes more sense that they have one. So in terms of the eNiro, so obviously there's been a few discussions, and I mentioned it before, in terms of the UK specification not being as good or the same as the European and Asian and US market. So been doing a bit more research. So I thought I'd summarise a little bit more about the UK specification and just kind of share this briefly with you, because there's lots of questions on forums and online. So we're going to talk about what I know about the 2019 eNiro first edition spec. This is obviously not fully comprehensive, but just covering the main things that I think are important to most people, and at least things that I've kind of raised myself. So first of all, in terms of colour options, there's only 5 colour options available. By default is Pluto brown colour. And it's kind of weird. In some pictures it doesn't look very good. In this picture I think it doesn't actually look too bad. I personally wouldn't want Pluto brown, but it doesn't look too bad. Then you have the other 4 colours are all premium paints. So the Pluto brown costs you nothing. Everything else is £595 I think on top of the price. So for me, the 2 favourite colours, or my colours in preference of order, would be Gravity Blue, followed by the Graphite, then I think maybe the White Pearl, then the Black, and then the Brown. But yeah, you're quite restrictive on colours in terms of what's available in the UK. There's no reds or anything, or silvers or anything. So that's interesting. Then if you move on to the technical specifications, so these should be quite well known, but I thought I'd kind of just confirm a few things. So 201 brake horsepower motor, coupled with a 64 kilowatt usable polymer battery. So the battery is obviously slightly larger than 64 kilowatts. This is the usable amount. I'm not sure what the actual capacity is, maybe 68, 70, something, I'm not sure. This doesn't use the same battery as the Hyundai Kona. So I know there's lots of comparison between the Hyundai Kona and the Kia eNiro. So Hyundai use the LG Chem batteries, whereas Kia are using the SK Innovation batteries. Now, based on the research I've done, the SK Innovation batteries are, if you compare cell to cell across between the LG and the SK Innovation battery cells get slightly kind of more kind of power and range from those batteries. So I think that makes sense why pretty much the range and power is kind of comparable, even though this is a slightly larger car. I think the SK Innovation battery works a little bit better on this platform. It's also quite good in terms of, I guess, in terms of delivery, because if they were using LG Chem batteries as well, then that's going to hamper delivery and production even further. So keep that in mind. In terms of max power, 150 kilowatts. So obviously when you floor it, that's how much power the batteries can deliver. So the battery pack is made up of 294 cells with maximum voltage 356 volts, which is a total of 180 amp hours, and the battery pack itself weighs 457 kilograms. The eNiro can do a maximum speed of 104 miles per hour and 0 to 60 in 7.5 seconds. The WLTP range, this is like the real world range that is not kind of completely made up, and it stands a good chance you would get this kind of range with the 17-inch alloys, which are the only alloys available on the eNiro. That is around 282 miles, and the insurance groups are quite high. So you compare it to the standard Niro, it's like 12 or 13. The insurance group of the eNiro is 28. So obviously keep that in mind in terms of insurance costs. In terms of charging, so with a 2.3 kilowatts charging, which is what you do, I think they call it the granny cable, you plug in with your 3-pin plug to go from 0 to 100%. That would take 29 hours. Then if you look at a 7.2 kilowatt charger, so this is if you have had a charger installed at your house, so that would be something like the MyEnergy Zappy. Then from 0 to 100 would be 9 hours and 15 minutes. Then if you're a DC fast charger, you'd go, so be able to pump out 50 kilowatts, that'd be 1 hour, 15 minutes from 0 to 100%. And then if you are lucky enough to find a 100 kilowatt charger and that's working well, you go from 0 to 80% in 54 minutes. Now, I don't know why they don't give a time for 100%. I'm assuming it's due to battery heating, etc., even though it is cooled, but that's the information we have in terms of charging. If we look at dimensions of the vehicle, the eNiro is actually slightly larger than the standard Niro. So the eNiro has a width of 1,805. The height from floor to the top of the roof is 1,570, and the length is 4,375. So marginally larger than the eNiro. I mean the Niro. So obviously, if you're doing kind of garage parking tests, etc., keep in mind that the eNiro is slightly wider and longer, I think. So something to keep in mind. In terms of the UK spec, so I've looked through all the spec sheet and called out the main things that people have spoken about. So as mentioned earlier, 17-inch alloys, that's 215 55s R17s. It's got projection headlights using halogen bulbs. It has got LED driving lights. It has got rain sensing wipers. It has got electrically folding mirrors. As standard, it's got black leather upholstery. It does have an electrical adjustable driver's seat, but not on the passenger seat, and no memory options whatsoever. It has got heated front seats, and it has got a heated steering wheel. It's got single automatic air conditioner or climate control, so that basically means it's not dual zone. So whatever, if you set it to 20, it's 20 all around the car, not 20 on the left and 21 on the right or whatever. It has got adaptive smart cruise control. The eNiro doesn't have a conventional key. It uses a smart key with a start-stop button. It's got the 8-speaker JBL sound system along with an 8-inch touchscreen. It has a reversing camera as well as front and rear parking sensors, and then has the FCA, LCAS and LFA, so the driving enhancements, or driving aid enhancements I should say. In terms of what is missing, there are a few things that most people have spoken about, some more important than others to some people. There is no option to have LED headlights like there is on like European versions. There's definitely no centre cabin light either in the UK version. I'm not quite sure if it is available in the other versions. The standard Niro does have it, so I don't know why they've done away with that for the electric version. Also no blind spot detection. That is available on the top spec standard Niro. Same as the rear cross traffic alert, that's also available on the higher spec Niro. Luggage area light, so in the boot there's no light on the UK spec. However, in the fully charged video I think we did see a light there, so not quite sure, but the spec sheet for UK says no luggage light. Also no aluminium pedals, so if you look on the higher spec Niro and the kind of European spec and Asian spec eNiro, it does have an aluminium accelerator, pedal, brake, and the dead pedal. Dual air conditioning, also not an option, is available on the top spec Niro, along with ventilated front seats, which is also available on the top spec Niro. Same as heated rear seats, no heated rear seats available on the eNiro, but again the top spec Niro has that. Same with driver's side memory seats, is standard in I think the European, US and Asian markets, but not the UK. And again, no option to upgrade to 18-inch alloy wheels if you decided to. The other thing that isn't quite clear actually is if it has a heat pump or not. But yeah, so my final thoughts are, in terms of pricing, £36,495, but in the UK £32,995 after the current grant that we have at the time of doing this video in January 2018. If you were lucky enough to have a priority order, which could have been done on the 10th of January, hopefully you will get a delivery in April. Speaking to the dealers, I spoke to a few dealers and Kia, the understanding is that if you have a priority order, there's a good chance you will get them in April. The following ones are kind of more standard order, and there is, I think, 1,000 cars altogether, right? 100 cars, can't remember, coming to UK. So after, I think it's like 160 dealers, so it's 160 cars already allocated to priority orders, and then the remainder will kind of go to customers, and those customers that are kind of closer in that list should get a car by the end of summer. Something that is interesting is normally you have the ability to buy a demonstrator, and Kia aren't allowing dealers to kind of fudge the system and have a demo car that they purchase. They actually hire them from Kia, and then they will have to give them back to Kia at the end of the hiring period. So they can't kind of buy one as a demonstrator, keep it for 90 days and then sell it like they can with a, the non eNiro. That's interesting. Like I mentioned, there's some debate as to whether the eNiro has a heat pump or not in the UK. I've been unable to clarify that. Some documents say it has it, some don't, so that's interesting. It is a shame that we don't have the option for the LED headlights and the vented seats and everything. My main gripe there is two things. One is those options are available outside of the UK, so it kind of seems strange that you'd have a variance in production run, but I guess they're doing it a variance because they have to have it right-hand drive anyway. And also I think the first edition should be top spec. So if the top spec standard Niro can have vented seats and heated rear seats and all this sort of thing, then the first edition should have that. Kind of go hard or go home is my kind of thoughts there. And it is a shame that in the UK and Europe there is no app support. So with an electric car, which should be kind of futuristic-y, people would like to have these things. So when I think about why I'm still interested in this car and I still want to test it, is with my 4 Series I have an app, but I never use it. But I think with the electric car, the reason I would like to use it, I'd like to be able to do the preheating from the battery and check the state of charge and stuff. So I would like to do that. I would like to have the LED lights, but I can do something about that and kind of change the bulbs to something more efficient. And the pedals and everything, I can sort that out. Dual zone climate control, most of my cars have had that before. It's not a showstopper though, so I would still consider it. So I think if the car, the eNiro when it's available, if it drives well, then I think I probably will place an order. But yeah, we'll see. So I hope this helped shed a bit more light on the UK Spec eNiro. Thanks for watching this video. A thumbs up would be really appreciated. If you're interested in other geek type videos, please consider subscribing to Spectrum Geeks. Why not also follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And before you leave, why don't you check out one of these other videos that may be of interest. Thanks again for watching.